Welcome to my channel. Thanks so much for watching. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to knit this absolutely beautiful scarf, stole, or wrap for men and women. It's very easy to make. The stitch that I use to make this wrap with is the double moss stitch pattern. It's very easy. I hope you like it. Now, as far as yarn, you're going to need a total of about 262 grams of yarn. I made mine using 2 strands of number 2 weight yarn. You can make yours using any yarn weight with any needle size. The important thing is a stitch multiple, which is multiples of 6 plus 4. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. And remember, if you prefer a written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop up here on the right hand side and in the information box below. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, to knit this scarf, I'm going to be using these circular knitting needles. I'm going to be using 32-inch long, but you can also use straight needles. Now, the size of these needles are US size 9 or 5.5 millimeter knitting needles. Now, the yarn that I'm going to be using is this here. This is Angora, and this is a number 2 weight yarn. I'm going to be using 2 strands. You can use any yarn weight with any needle size. The important thing is the stitch multiple to the pattern that I'm going to be using for the scarf, which is the double moss stitch pattern. And the stitch multiple for that is multiples of 6 plus 4. The extra 4 stitches are going to be border stitches, 2 on each side. So with that stitch multiple, you can cast on any number of stitches and make your scarf as wide as you want and as long as you want. Continue watching. At the end of the tutorial, I'm going to leave you the finished measurement of my scarf. So if you want your scarf to be wider or smaller, then go ahead and cast on whatever number of stitches that you want. Just make sure that it's in multiples of 6 plus 4. So here, to begin, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cast on a total of 70 stitches. I'm going to show you how to cast on your stitches using the long tail cast on method. So to begin, grab both needles and we're going to wrap the yarn around 20 times. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I have enough yarn here for about 20 stitches. Remove this yarn and we're going to double it up. I have enough for about 40 stitches. Double it up again. We have enough for about 60 stitches, and I'm going to double it up again. I have enough for about 80 stitches. Now I'm going to add a little tiny more. It's best to have some left over than to have to redo this again. So here, make a slip knot and insert both needles through this loop like this. Now, to begin, you're going to open up the yarn by inserting your index finger and opening up the yarn like this. And we're going to go from left to right, grab a loop like this. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on until you have a total of 70 stitches, or however many stitches you want to cast on, depending on how wide you want your scarf to be. I'm going to do 70, and like I said, at the end of the tutorial, I'm going to leave you the finished measurement of my scarf. So if you want to adjust the size and the length, go ahead and watch to the end of the tutorial. Okay, so continue, finish casting on your stitches, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished casting on my stitches. I have 70 stitches here on my knitting needles. Now carefully remove one of the needles here. There. And now here at the end, I like to just tie a knot so that this last stitch here doesn't open up too big. There. Now Like I said, I have 70 stitches. From here on, the last 2 stitches and the first 2 stitches are going to be border stitches. So what we're going to do for this first row only is I'm going to knit the first stitch. After this, I'm not going to knit the first stitch. I'm always going to slip, but for this first row, I'm going to knit the first stitch. Now, the next stitch, I'm also going to knit. So here are our 2 border stitches. Now I'm going to place some stitch markers just to mark these 2 stitches. You don't have to, but it's going to help. I'm going to do the other one at the end. Now the stitches in between, so the next 66 stitches, this is what we're going to do. So the first one we slipped, the next one we knit, and then I placed a stitch marker. So for the border of the scarf, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to knit 2, and I'm going to purl 2. Again, knit 2, purl 2. Knit 2, purl 2. And that's how you're going to continue up to the last 2 stitches here at the end. I will meet you at the end of this first row. I'm here at the end of this first row of the border. Now these 2 stitches here I knit, I have the last 2 stitches. Now place a stitch marker to mark these border stitches. Now here at the end, what I'm going to do is in the next stitch, bring the yarn here to the front, in front of you, and slip this stitch purlwise. Now bring the yarn back to the back here and knit the last stitch. From here on, that's what we're going to do at the end of each row. You always slip this stitch here purlwise with the yarn in front of you, and then knit the last stitch. This is going to create a really nice border so that you don't have to make a border after the scarf is done. Now turn for the second row. We're going to slip the first stitch purlwise, so insert the needle through the center, and the stitch that I slipped in the first row, in this row I'm going to knit. So this here would be the wrong side, this here would be the right side. So for the second row, you slip the first stitch purlwise and knit the second stitch. Pass the stitch marker, and here I'm going to begin with purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2. And that's how I'm going to continue to the end of this second row. Again, this is on the wrong side. I will meet you at the end of this row. I'm here at the end of the second row. This is on the wrong side. Now these 2 stitches here I purled. Now pass the stitch marker, and remember how I said that these last 2 stitches you will always slip the next stitch purlwise with the yarn in front of you. Bring the yarn back to the back and knit the last stitch. And here's the second row. Now turn for the third row. This is the right side. So here to begin, we slip the first stitch purlwise and knit the next stitch. Now pass the stitch marker, and again we're going to repeat the same thing here. We're going to knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. You're going to do this to the end of this third row. I will meet you there once again to show you how to finish this row when you're on the right side and how to start the next row when you're on the wrong side. I'm here at the end of the third row. Now these 2 stitches here are knit. Pass your stitch marker, and at the end of each row, remember you bring the yarn to the front, slip the next stitch purlwise, and knit the last stitch. And here is row 3. Now turn. This is row 4, and this is on the wrong side. So to start each row, when you're on the wrong side, slip the first stitch purlwise and knit the second stitch. Pass your stitch marker, and here you're going to begin with purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2. So continue like this for the 4th row. When you finish here at the end, you're going to slip this next stitch after the stitch marker purlwise, knit the last stitch, then you're going to turn, slip the first stitch purlwise, knit the next stitch, pass the stitch marker, and you're going to repeat the same thing I showed you in the 3rd row. Knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. You can see here how the stitches are going to go. This column here, the first 2 stitches are knit and the next 2 are purl. You can really tell now. So continue like this, repeating these 2 rows. I'm going to do a total of 8 rows, and then I'll come back and show you the stitch pattern, which is the double moss stitch. I finished the 8th row. Now we're going to turn and we're going to begin the pattern here. This is the double moss stitch pattern. If you want to make this part here wider, continue and make more rows, that would be up to you. I only did 8. So here we're going to begin with the stitch pattern that I used, which is the double moss stitch. Now to begin, we always slip the first stitch purlwise, knit the second stitch. I'm on the right side, so here you're going to slip the stitch marker, and this pattern consists of 4 rows. This would be the first row. You're going to knit 1 and purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And that's how you're going to continue. Knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. That's how you're going to continue to the end. I will meet you right here before the stitch marker to show you how we're going to finish this first row of this pattern stitch. I'm here at the end of this first row to this pattern stitch. Now these 2 stitches here before the stitch marker, I have a knit and a purl. Now past the stitch marker, and here at the end we slip the next stitch purlwise, bring the yarn to the back and knit the last stitch. And here's the first row. Now turn for the second row to this pattern, slip the first stitch purlwise, knit the next stitch. This is the wrong side. Pass the stitch marker. In this second row, although we are on the back side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to knit the first stitch and purl the next. Knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit and purl. Continue like this to the end of this second row. I'll meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the second row. This is the wrong side. So here at the end, these 2 stitches before the stitch marker, I have a knit stitch and a purl stitch. Pass the stitch marker to finish the row, slip the next stitch purlwise, bring the yarn to the back and knit the last stitch. Now turn for the 3rd row here of the pattern. So to begin the 3rd row, we're going to switch the stitches around. In row 1 and 2, we knit and purl. In row 3 and 4, we're going to purl and knit. And that's all. So to begin here, the 3rd row, slip the first stitch purlwise, knit the second stitch here of the border, pass the stitch marker. So here to begin the 3rd row, I'm going to purl the first stitch after the stitch marker, and I'm going to knit the purl stitch. So the second stitch is a purl. Again, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. And that's how you're going to continue for this third row. It's the opposite of how we did rows 1 and 2. So purl 1, knit 1. I'll meet you at the end of this third row. I'm here at the end of the third row. These 2 stitches before the stitch marker, I have a purl stitch and a knit stitch. Pass the stitch marker, bring the yarn to the front, slip the next stitch purlwise, and knit the last stitch. And here's the third row. Now turn for the fourth row. So in the fourth row, we're going to do the same thing we did in the third row. Slip the first stitch purlwise and knit the second stitch. Pass the stitch marker, and here we're going to purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl, knit, purl, and knit. And that's how you're going to continue for the fourth row. It's a very easy pattern, very easy to remember. So continue. I'll meet you at the end of this fourth row. I'm here at the end of the fourth row. Now these 2 stitches before the stitch marker, this is on the wrong side, by the way. I have a purl stitch and a knit stitch. Now pass the stitch marker, and here at the end, we always slip purlwise the next stitch, and we knit the last stitch. And here is the fourth row, and this completes the pattern. This is the double moss stitch pattern. From here on, you're just going to continue and repeat these 4 rows. So to start you off here on the first row, again, remember the first 2 rows, row 1 and 2, is you knit 1, purl 1. For rows 3 and 4, you purl 1, knit 1, and that's all. Now slip the first stitch here. This would be the first row again. Knit the next stitch, pass the stitch marker. Now eventually it's going to happen where you get lost and you don't know which row you did last. It has happened to me. So one way to tell is look at these 2 stitches here, this one and this one. This is the first stitch at the beginning of the row when you're on the right side. If you see a bump in front, that's a purl stitch. If you see V stitches, that's a knit stitch. So to begin here, I know that I need to do the row where I knit 1 and purl 1. Knit 1, purl 1. And that's how you're going to continue for the rest of this row. Now at the end of this row, here are the border stitches. Remember, when you're on the right side, this is the right side. I can always tell that I'm on the right side by this tail end here. You can always put a stitch marker, but I guide myself with this tail end there. So here at the end, you're going to slip this stitch purlwise with the yarn in front and then knit the last stitch. After that, you're going to turn and you're going to slip the first stitch and knit the second stitch, pass the stitch marker, and then repeat the same thing. Again, row 1 and 2 of the pattern is the same, knit 1, purl 1. Row 3 and 4 is purl 1, knit 1, so it's the opposite. And that's how you're going to continue. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do. Now it's going to be hard to keep track of the rows, so what I'm going to do instead is just count these slip stitches here that I have at the beginning of the rows. So these stitches here, and that way I can tell you how many rows I'm going to do. You can make your scarf as long as you want, as short as you want, as wide as you want, using the stitch multiple that I mentioned at the beginning, and just have at it. Just continue and knit. This is such an easy project that you can just carry this with you anywhere you go. My son likes to go to the library, so this is going to be my library project. So we'll see how big my scarf is. So continue and repeat these 4 rows over and over until you have the length that you want, and continue watching. I will let you know how many rows approximately I have for mine, and I'll give you some final measurements once the scarf is done. So I will meet you at the end of that row. Okay, I'm almost done with the scarf. Now, I lost track of how many rows I did, but what I did here is I counted all of these slip stitches along the edge, and I have a total of 203 slip stitches. So you can do the same thing. I think that will put me over 400 rows here of the pattern. The important thing now is that we're on the right side. So I'm here right now. So this would be the beginning of the row. So I am currently on the same side. It doesn't really matter because what we're going to do next is the border, just like how we did it here. The measurement. It was hard to measure this right now, but I'm guesstimating that it's measuring about 72 inches. What I did for this scarf is that I just continued to knit until it measured from tip to tip. So I just draped it over my shoulders, and then I just continue until it went over the tips of my fingers. And that is just because I wanted a nice long scarf. You can make your scarf shorter or longer, that would be up to you. I love this stitch pattern, so I just continued to knit and did not worry about keeping track of rows. But if you want to be precise, I have a total of 203 slip stitches here along the edge, so you can do the same thing. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to now make the border just like I did here. Make sure that you're on the right side. I am on the right side right now, so for the next 8 rows we're going to do the same thing we did here. We're going to knit 2, purl 2. So to begin here, this is what we're going to do. So to begin here, we're going to always slip the first stitch purlwise, and we knit the next stitch. These are our 2 border stitches, and now we're going to knit 2 and purl 2. Knit 2. Again, you're going to purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, all the way to the end. So I'm going to continue here. Knit 2 here at the end, and I have my last 2 border stitches. Remember, you bring the yarn to the front and you slip the next stitch and you knit the last stitch. Here's the first row here for the border of the scarf. Now turn, and same thing here. We slip the first stitch purlwise and we knit the next stitch. Now here we're going to do the same thing. My last 2 stitches here were 2 knits, so in this row I'm going to purl. So purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, and we're going to do this to the end of this row. Here are the last 2 stitches. I purl 2 and I have my last 2 border stitches. Same thing, we slip the next stitch purlwise and knit the last stitch. And here's the second row. This is the wrong side. I have 70 stitches. So now we just continue and repeat these 2 rows for a total of 8 rows, and then on row 9 I'm going to bind off. So continue. Now I'm going to start you off here. It's the same thing we did in the first row. Slip the first stitch purlwise, knit the next stitch, and here knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. And that's how I'm going to continue here, just repeating these 2 rows for a total of 8 rows, which is what we did here for the beginning border right here. Where is it? right here. So we did a total of 8 rows. In row 9, I'm going to cast off. I finished making the border. I did a total of 8 rows. So now to bind off, I'm on the right side. So to do this here, I am going to slip the first stitch and knit the next stitch. Now bring the first stitch over the second stitch. Now knit the next stitch, bring the first stitch over the second. Knit the next stitch and bring the first stitch over the second. Now purl the next stitch, bring the first stitch over the second, purl the next stitch, bring the first stitch over the second, and again knit 1, bring the first stitch over, knit 1, and bring the stitch over. You're just going to keep doing this until we have bind off all of our stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Once I finish here at the end, I'm just going to cut my yarn and then just hide my ends, and then I'll come back and show you the finished scarf. I finished casting off my stitches here at the end. All you're going to do is at the end you're going to be left with 1 stitch. All you do is just cut your yarn and pass your yarn through that last loop, and then just hide your ends here on the inside, which is what I did. This is the edge of my scarf. I love how this turned out, and I absolutely love this color. Look at this stitch pattern. It's absolutely beautiful. Now let me give you the finished measurement. It's about 74 inches long by 14 inches wide. You can make yours longer, shorter, not as wide, but I think that this size is perfect. I'm going to call this Autumn Beauty. Fall is about to start here where I live, so I can't wait to wear this winter time or late fall. I absolutely love how this turned out, and it was just a mindless knitting project that I had in my bag whenever I took my son to the library. This is what I did. So I absolutely love it, and I got many compliments as I was knitting this in the library. They asked me what stitch pattern this was, and of course I had to tell them that it's the double moss stitch pattern. So I hope you like it and get to make one yourself. You can make this using any yarn weight with any needle size. The important thing is the stitch multiple, like I mentioned at the beginning, which is multiples of 6 plus 4. The border stitches are the stitches here at the beginning, the first 2 stitches and the last 2, which creates this beautiful border here. So once your scarf is done, you don't need to do anything. It's all done. Now, as far as yarn, I used a total of, let's see, 262 grams, and I used 2 strands of number 2 weight yarn. So my scarf is all done. I love how this turned out. It's nice and long and nice and wide as well. So this was today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.